Level 1. The survivor. You are the person who knows the exact layout of the discount aisle, the specific vibration of a phone call from a debt collector, and the hollow feeling of a bank account balance that hits zero 3 days before the next paycheck. Your life is a series of tactical retreats. When you stand at the grocery checkout, you aren't thinking about nutrition. You are watching the digital screen of the register with a focused intensity, praying the word approved appears before the line of people behind you starts to sigh. The cashier, a girl named Lynn, who looks just as tired as you, avoids eye contact because she's seen this play out a dozen times today. Your world is small, defined by the immediate. You don't have a 5-year plan, you have a Tuesday plan. You buy the generic brand coffee because it saves you 50 cents, even though it tastes like burnt cardboard. Because 50 cents is the difference between a bus ticket and a long walk home in the rain. You are constantly calculating, constantly negotiating with a reality that doesn't want to budge. You feel hopeful and trapped, in equal measure, hopeful that the next big break is around the corner, yet trapped by the weight of a past due notice that sits on your kitchen table like a ticking clock. At this level, money isn't a tool or a luxury. It is simply the price of another 24 hours of breathing room. Level 2. The treadmill. You are the professional who has finally made it to a stable salary, a leased car that smells of artificial leather, and a suburban apartment with a view of a slightly better suburban apartment. On the surface, the crisis is over, but underneath you are running faster than ever just to stay in the same place. You are the employee who stays until 7 p.m., because your manager, Mr. Huang, makes a habit of walking past your desk with a nod of approval that feels more like a leash than a compliment. You have traded the fear of starvation for the fear of being average. Your life is measured in monthly installments. Your phone, your gym membership, and your peace of mind are all rented. You spend your weekends at malls buying high-quality distractors to forget the 40 hours you traded for them. You look at your peers and see a mirror of your own exhaustion, yet you all smile in the group photos. You are comfortable and fragile, at the same time, comfortable enough to order the expensive steak, yet fragile enough to know that one HR email or one medical emergency could bring the whole gilded structure crashing down. You don't own your possessions. Your possessions are simply the collateral for the time you haven't lived yet. Level 3. The fortress. You are the strategist who has built a wall of cash between yourself and the world's chaos, possessing 6 months of expenses and a diversified portfolio that you check more often than your own pulse. You have achieved what the world calls security. But your primary emotion is no longer ambition, it's preservation. You have become the architect of a beautiful prison. When your old friends invite you to a spontaneous weekend getaway, you decline, not because you lack the funds, but because the expense isn't optimized in your spreadsheet. You spend your evenings staring at a monitor watching green and red candles flicker, calculating how many life hours a new laptop would cost you. You see everything through the lens of opportunity cost. You have more money than 90% of the population, yet you feel poorer because you now know exactly what you have to lose. You are the client who sits across from an investment advisor nodding at terms like risk mitigation, while feeling a cold knot in your stomach about the next market dip. You are safe and stingy in equal measure. You have finally built the fortress you always wanted, only to realize you are the only one locked inside guarding a treasure you're too afraid to spend. Level 4. The pivot. You are the silent observer of your own wealth, the person who realizes that your bank account is finally breathing on its own, generating a trickle of income that covers your electricity, your internet, and your morning coffee without you lifting a finger. This is the first time you feel the tectonic plates of your reality shift. You are no longer just a worker. You are a patron of your own existence. You find yourself in a park on a Tuesday afternoon, watching the world rush by, holding a phone call with your broker, Min, the same Min who used to ignore your emails back when you were at level 2. The conversation is different now. He speaks to you with a soft, deferential tone presenting opportunities instead of products. You realize that in the eyes of the financial system, you have transitioned from a consumer to be harvested into a partner, to be cultivated. Yet this new air feels thin. You look at your growing dividends and realize they are built on the labor of people who are currently sitting at level 1 and 2, and for the first time, the math feels personal. You feel powerful and uncertain in the same breath. You are starting to understand the great secret of the wealthy. Money doesn't actually work for you. It works for itself, and you are simply the one holding the leash. Level 5, the independent. You are the ghost in the machine of the 9 to 5 world, the individual who walked into the office of a man like Mr. Hoang, shook his hand, and walked out forever. You have achieved the number. Your passive income now matches your lifestyle, and suddenly, the loudest sound in your life is the silence of an empty calendar. You wake up at 9 a.m. without an alarm, the sunlight hitting a kitchen counter that is cluttered with books you finally have time to read, but no one to discuss them with. Most of your friends are still trapped in the treadmill of level 2, and when you suggest a midweek lunch, their polite refusals remind you of the invisible wall that has grown between you. You have the freedom that everyone prays for, but you discover that freedom is a heavy garment to wear. Without the friction of a job to push against your identity, begins to feel blurred at the edges. You spend your mornings at a seaside cafe watching the commuters with a mix of pity and envy, wondering if they know something about purpose that you traded away for peace. You are free and isolated in equal measure. You have successfully exited the race only to find that the finish line is a lonely place, where the only person left to compete with is the version of yourself that still needed to prove something. Level 6, the architect. You are the strategist who no longer trades time for money, but vision for legacy. You have moved beyond the number and into the realm of influence, buying the very company where you once sat as a terrified level 2 employee. You are the owner who walks through the lobby of a glass tower, and while the security guards know your name, you realize you no longer know the names of the people working for you. You sit across from Mr. Huang, your former boss, but now he is the one adjusting his tie nervously, presenting quarterly reports to you with a forced smile that hides a decade of exhaustion. Your life is a series of high-stakes negotiations where the currency isn't just cash, but the direction of entire industries. You spend your weekends on private estates discussing synergy and market dominance, yet you find yourself checking your phone every 6 minutes. The fortress you built in level 3 has expanded into an empire, and you're its chief protector. You realize that while you own the game, you are the only one who is never allowed to leave the table. You are the master and the servant of your own creation in equal measure. You have successfully designed a world that revolves around you, only to discover that being the center of gravity means you can never drift away into the peace you once craved. Level 7, the ghost. You are the invisible hand, the entity whose wealth has become so vast and automated that it has outgrown your own ability to spend it. You exist in the quiet spaces of the world, a private gallery in London, a vineyard in Tuscany, or a simple wooden bench in a park where no one recognizes your face. Your assets move through global markets like shadows managed by a tier of advisors who manage advisors. You are the person who can change the fate of a neighborhood with a signature, yet you find yourself searching for a conversation that isn't a transaction. In a dimly lit tea room, you sit across from a young artist who is struggling to pay rent, someone who is firmly at level 1. You listen to them speak about their passion with a raw, unpolished intensity, and you feel a pang of envy that no amount of compound interest can soothe. They have the one thing you can no longer afford: the innocence of not knowing how the story ends. You are everywhere and nowhere at the same time. You possess the ultimate freedom of anonymity, but you are haunted by the realization that in becoming a legend, you have ceased to be a person. At this height, money is no longer a resource. It is a ghost that haunts the house you no longer live in. At level 1, you were the survivor who knew the schedule, but not the strategy, praying for enough air to last the week. At level 7, you are the strategy itself, an invisible force in a world that has become a series of predictable outcomes. We spend our lives climbing this ladder, convinced that the view from the top will finally explain why we started the journey. But look closely at the ghost and the survivor. They both sit in the same quiet rooms, staring at the same moon, asking the same question: was it worth what I had to become? Money is a great servant, providing the walls for your fortress and the wings for your escape. But it is a terrible master, demanding your soul as the price of admission. Which version of this life would you actually choose? And if you reach the top tomorrow, which part of your level 1 self would you miss the most? The game is always moving. The question is, are you playing the levels, or are the levels playing you?